I came home early that Tuesday. The cardiologist had canceled last minute. Something about an emergency surgery. So instead of sitting in that waiting room until 3, I was pulling into my driveway at noon. My hands were still shaking a little. They'd been doing that since Harold died. The doctor said it was stress. Kristen said it was my age. This story is inspired by real-life submissions. Names and identifying details have been changed. I turned the key as quietly as I always did. I don't know why I do that. It's my house. But lately, I'd started feeling like a guest in my own home. The living room was empty. The kitchen too. But I heard something upstairs. A drawer closing. Footsteps in my bedroom. My bedroom. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, one hand on the railing, listening. Kristen's voice drifted down, talking to someone on the phone. Low and careful. The kind of voice you use when you don't want to be heard. No, she's not here. She won't be back until later. I have time. Time for what? I climbed the stairs slowly. My knees complained, but I kept going. At the top, my bedroom door was half open. I could see Kristen standing at Harold's old desk, the one I hadn't touched in 8 months, because it still smelled like his aftershave. She had files spread out. My files. Tax returns. The deed to the house. Insurance papers. She was holding something up to the light. A piece of paper. Then she set it down, pulled out her phone, and took a picture. I stepped into the doorway. She looked up. For just a second, her face went blank. Then she smiled. Nancy? Oh my God, you scared me. She pressed a hand to her chest, laughing a little too loud. What are you doing home so early? I didn't answer right away. I was looking at the desk, at the drawer she'd left open, at the stack of envelopes she'd moved from the filing cabinet. What are you doing in here? I asked. Her smile didn't move. I was just organizing some things for you. You mentioned last week that you couldn't find your property tax statement. Remember? I thought I'd help. I hadn't mentioned that. I'd never mentioned that. I didn't ask you to do that. I said, I know. She walked toward me, still smiling, and put a hand on my arm. Her fingers were cold. But you've been so tired lately, Nancy. I just wanted to take some of the weight off. You know how confusing paperwork can get? Confusing. That word landed between us like a stone. I'm not confused, I said. Of course not. But her tone said something else. It said humor her. It said she's old. It said let it go. She started gathering the papers, folding them back into the folders. I'll just finish putting these away, okay? Then I'll make us some tea. I watched her hands move, fast, efficient, like she'd done this before. Then I saw it, tucked under a manila folder, a single sheet of paper with my name printed at the top, and below it, a signature. My signature, except I didn't remember signing it. What's that? I pointed. Kristen glanced down. Her face didn't change. Oh, that's just a form from the bank, for your account. You signed it a few weeks ago, remember? When we went together? I hadn't gone to the bank with her in weeks. I don't remember that, I said. She laughed softly. You've had a lot on your mind, Nancy. It's okay to forget things. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A missed call from First National Bank, the branch on Maple Street, where I'd had my account for 32 years. I looked at Kristen. She was still smiling, but her eyes weren't. I think I'd like you to leave now, I said. Her smile finally cracked. Just a little. Just enough. Nancy, don't be silly. I'm just trying to help. I didn't ask for help. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she picked up her purse, slung it over her shoulder, and walked past me into the hallway. At the top of the stairs, she turned back. You should really start writing things down, she said, so you don't forget. Then she left. I stood there in my bedroom, surrounded by papers I didn't recognize, holding a phone that had a missed call I didn't understand. And I realized something. I didn't feel confused. I felt afraid. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it. The way Kristen had been standing at that desk. The way she'd smiled when she saw me. The way she'd said, confusing like it was a diagnosis. By 6 a.m. I was dressed and sitting in my car outside First National Bank, waiting for them to open. I'd been banking there since before my son was born. Back when Harold and I opened our first joint account with $17 and a dream, the manager, a man named Norman, had known me for years. He'd sent a card when Harold died. He'd know this was a mistake. The doors unlocked at 9. I was the first one in. Norman saw me from his office and waved me over. "Mrs. Chun, good to see you. What brings you in today?" I sat down across from him and pulled out my phone. "I got a missed call from you yesterday. I was at the doctor and couldn't answer." He nodded slowly, folding his hands on the desk. "Ah, yes. We were just following up on some recent activity on your account. Nothing to worry about." "What kind of activity?" He tapped his keyboard, eyes on the screen. "Let me pull that up for you." A pause. Then he tilted his head. "It looks like there was a request filed about 3 weeks ago for financial assistance authorization. Pretty standard when families want to help manage things." My stomach dropped. "I didn't file anything." Norman's expression shifted. "Careful now. Well, according to our records, you came in with your daughter-in-law and signed the paperwork. We have it notarized and everything. She's not my daughter-in-law. She's my son's wife, and I didn't come here with her." He was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward, speaking slower now. Speaking the way people do when they think you can't keep up. "Mrs. Chun, memory can be tricky sometimes, especially when we're dealing with stress or grief. It's very common for, 'I'm not confused,'" I said. He smiled. It was kind. It was condescending. "Of course not. But sometimes families step in to help when things get overwhelming. Your daughter-in-law was very concerned about you. She mentioned you'd been having trouble keeping track of bills. I haven't missed a bill in 40 years. Can I see the paperwork?" I asked. He hesitated. Then he printed something and slid it across the desk. There it was. A form authorizing Kristen to assist with account management and financial decisions on a temporary basis. Dated 3 weeks ago. Notarized by someone named L. Vargas. And at the bottom, a signature that looked almost like mine. Almost. "I didn't sign this," I said. Norman's face softened with something that looked like pity. "Mrs. Chun, I understand this is difficult. Aging can bring a lot of changes, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Many of our clients find that having a family member help with finances actually reduces stress." I stared at him. "Are you saying you think I'm incapable of managing my own money?" "Not at all. I'm just saying that sometimes we don't remember everything we've done, and that's okay." I folded the paper and put it in my purse. "I'd like a copy of every document I've signed in the last 6 months. He blinked. That's a lot of paperwork. I have time." He printed it. All of it. 12 pages. I left the bank with a stack of paper in my hands and a sick feeling in my chest. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and went through every page. Most of it I recognized. Deposits. Withdrawals. The automatic payment for my water bill. But there, on page 7, was something I'd never seen before. A change of mailing address. Requested 4 weeks ago. My bank statements weren't coming to my house anymore. They were going to Kristen's. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. Searched for anything from the bank. Nothing recent. I checked my spam folder. There. 3 emails from First National. Flagged as junk. All opened. Opened from an IP address I didn't recognize. Someone had been reading my emails. Deleting the ones they didn't want me to see. My hands started shaking again. I looked up Kristen's number. My finger hovered over it. Then I deleted the call. If she knew I was asking questions, she'd get ahead of me. She'd smile and explain and make me sound paranoid. She'd done it yesterday. She'd do it again. I needed to understand what was happening before I said anything. I needed proof. And I needed someone who would believe me. The law office smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. I'd found the attorney online. Elder Law, the website said. Protecting seniors from financial abuse. It seemed like the right place. It seemed like someone would finally listen. The receptionist smiled at me like I was fragile. Mrs. Chun. Mr. Pemberton will see you now. The attorney was younger than I expected. Mid-40s, maybe. He shook my hand and gestured to a chair across from his desk. So, he said, pulling out a legal pad. Tell me what's going on. I told him. About Kristen in my bedroom. About the signature I didn't remember. About the bank. About the mailing address. He wrote everything down, nodding, listening. When I finished, he set down his pen and leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Chun, I appreciate you coming in. This sounds very stressful. He paused. Can I ask, have you had any medical evaluations recently? Any diagnoses that might affect memory or decision-making? There it was again. No, I said. And you're certain you didn't authorize your daughter-in-law to help with your accounts? I'm certain. He nodded slowly. The challenge here is that we have a notarized document with what appears to be your signature. In cases like this, especially with older clients, banks tend to assume the family member is acting in good faith. Older clients? I'm 66, I said. Not 90, of course. I'm not suggesting you're incapable. I'm just explaining how these situations are often perceived. He picked up his pen again. Has there been any recent confusion? Any moments where you've felt disoriented or forgetful? I wanted to scream. Instead, I opened my purse and pulled out the papers from the bank. I laid them on his desk, one by one. This is the form I supposedly signed. This is the date. I was at physical therapy that day. I have the appointment card. This is the change of address request. I never made it. This is an email that was opened from an IP address that isn't mine. He looked at the papers. Really looked this time. Okay, he said quietly. This is more concrete than most cases I see. Most cases. Elder financial abuse is more common than people think, and it's usually someone close, someone trusted. He pulled the bank form closer. The signature is good. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. What do I do? We start by getting everything documented. Bank records, emails, any communication with Kristen about your finances. We'll also need to verify that this notary actually witnessed you signing, which I'm guessing they didn't. And then we file a formal complaint with the bank and potentially with the state attorney general's office. But Mrs. Chun, I need to be honest with you. These cases take time, and they require you to be very sure of your facts. I am sure. He looked at me for a long moment. Good. Because the first thing they'll try to do is discredit you. They'll say you're confused, that you're grieving, that you gave permission and forgot. I know, I said, because I'd already heard it. From Norman, from Kristen, from the careful way everyone had started talking to me. I left his office with a list of documents to gather and a sick feeling that kept growing. In the car, I checked my phone. A text from Kristen. Hey Nancy, just checking in? Haven't heard from you in a few days? Is everything okay? I stared at it. Then I noticed something. My mail. I hadn't checked it in 2 days. I drove home and went straight to the mailbox. It was empty, but I'd seen the mailman yesterday. I'd watched him put something in there. I went inside and called the post office. Hi, yes, I'm calling about my mail delivery. I think something might be missing. The clerk put me on hold. Came back a minute later. Ma'am, it looks like your mail is being forwarded. Forwarded where? She gave me an address. Kristen's address? I hung up, sat down on my couch, and realized I wasn't just being undermined. I was being erased. The county clerk's office was in the old courthouse downtown. I'd been there twice before. Once to get my marriage license. Once to file Harold's death certificate. This time, I was looking for something I couldn't name yet. Just a feeling that if Kristen had changed my mailing address at the bank and the post office, maybe she'd changed other things too. The woman at the front desk pointed me toward public records. 3rd floor. Ask for Oscar. Oscar was maybe 30. Thin glasses. Calm voice. He looked up when I approached the counter. How can I help you? I need to see any documents filed under my name in the last 6 months, I said. He typed something into his computer. Nancy Chun. Yes. His eyes moved across the screen. Then he frowned. You've had a busy few months, he said quietly. My chest tightened. What do you mean? He turned the monitor so I could see. Property deed update? Power of attorney registration? Beneficiary change on a life insurance policy? All filed within the last 8 weeks. I couldn't breathe. I didn't file any of that. Oscar looked at me. Not with pity, not with doubt. Just steady attention. Do you want copies? He asked. Yes. He printed them. Slid them across the counter in a neat stack. I opened the first one. Power of attorney. Effective immediately. Granting Kristen full authority over my financial and medical decisions. My signature at the bottom. Dated 6 weeks ago. I was at my sister's house in Oregon 6 weeks ago. I have the plane ticket. This isn't right, I said. Oscar leaned forward slightly. Ma'am, I see a lot of documents come through here. And I'm not supposed to say this. But when I see multiple filings for someone your age, all happening at once, all involving the same secondary party, it raises questions. What kind of questions? The kind where someone's moving fast. Too fast? He tapped the paper. This signature looks close. But the pressure's different. See how the ink pools here? That happens when someone's tracing, copying a signature from another document. It takes longer, so the pen stays in one spot too long, leaves a mark. He pulled up another screen. I pulled your older records, from when you filed your husband's death certificate. Compare the signatures. He was right. My real signature was faster, lighter. This one was too careful. Can I use this? I asked. In court, maybe. It's not proof on its own, but it's a start. He wrote something on a post-it note and slid it across. This is the notary who supposedly witnessed these signatures. Louisa Vargas. She works out of a UPS store on 5th Street. If she didn't actually see you sign, that's fraud. I took the note. Thank you, ma'am. He waited until I looked at him. People who do this, they count on you not checking. They count on you being too embarrassed or too tired or too confused to fight back. Don't let them count on that. I folded the papers and put them in my purse. My phone rang. Kristen. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another call. Then a text. Nancy, I'm worried about you. You're not answering. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? Another text. I'm coming over. I looked at Oscar. I have to go. Be careful, he said. I drove home fast. Faster than I should have. When I pulled into my driveway, Kristen's car was already there. She was standing on my porch, arms crossed, phone in her hand. When she saw me, she smiled. But it wasn't the same smile anymore. It was tighter, sharper. Nancy, she said. Where have you been? I unlocked the door. Didn't answer. She followed me inside. I've been calling you all morning, she said. I was about to call your doctor. I thought maybe you'd gotten lost, or I wasn't lost. Well, you weren't answering your phone. You can understand why I'd be concerned. I turned to face her. Why are you concerned, Kristen? She blinked. Because you're family. Because I care about you. Is that why you changed my mailing address? Her face went still. Nancy, I think you're confused. Stop saying that. We stood there in my kitchen. The house Harold and I bought in 1984. The house I'd raised my son in. The house that was mine. And I realized something. She wasn't going to stop. Not unless I made her. The HOA meeting was on Thursday night. I almost didn't go. I'd missed the last 3. Kristen had told everyone I wasn't feeling well, that I was struggling with grief, that she was keeping an eye on me. But this time, I wanted people to see me. I wanted them to hear me speak. I wanted witnesses. The meeting was in the community center. 15 neighbors sitting in folding chairs, drinking bad coffee and arguing about lawn care. I sat in the back. Kristen was already there, front row. She turned when I walked in, and her smile froze for just a second. "Nancy," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't know you were coming. You should have told me. I would have driven you." "I can drive myself," I said. A few people glanced over. Mrs. Patterson from 2 doors down. The Johnsons from the corner house. They smiled at me the way you smile at someone you feel sorry for. The meeting started. Landscaping budget, holiday decorations, parking complaints. Then Heather, the HOA president, brought up property maintenance. "We've had a few concerns," she said, looking at her notes. "Some overgrown hedges, a couple of mailboxes that need repainting, and we've noticed that Mrs. Chun's gutters haven't been cleaned in a while." I sat up straighter. "My gutters are fine." Heather smiled. "I'm sure they are. We're just trying to stay on top of things, especially for our older residents who might need a little extra help." There it was again. Older residents. Kristen turned in her seat. "I've been meaning to take care of that for Nancy. She's had a lot on her plate lately." "I didn't ask you to do that," I said. Kristen's smile stayed in place. "I know, but I'm happy to help. That's what family does." Mr. Johnson leaned over to his wife and whispered something. She nodded. I felt my face get hot. "Actually," Kristen continued, "I've been helping Nancy with quite a bit. Bills, appointments, paperwork. It's a lot to manage alone at her age." At her age. I pulled out my phone, opened the Ring app. I'd installed the doorbell camera a year ago, right after Harold died. For security, I'd thought. I scrolled back through the recordings, found what I was looking for. Last Tuesday, 10:47 a.m., Kristen, walking up to my mailbox, looking around, opening it, taking out envelopes, walking to her car. I stood up. "Heather, can I show you something?" The room went quiet. I walked to the front and held out my phone. "This is my Ring camera. From last week." Heather watched the video. Her expression changed. Is that your mail?" "Yes." Kristen stood up. "Nancy, what are you doing?" "Showing people what you've been doing." Her face flushed. "I was just picking up your mail for you. You asked me to." "I didn't. You don't remember. You've been forgetting a lot lately." She looked around the room. "She calls me at all hours. Sometimes she doesn't know what day it is. I'm just trying to help her stay independent." Mrs. Patterson nodded sympathetically. I pulled out the papers Oscar had given me. The power of attorney? The property deed update? The beneficiary change? "Did I ask you to file these too?" Kristen went pale. "Those are private documents, Nancy. You shouldn't be showing them to people. They have my name on them. My signature. Except I didn't sign them." The room was silent now. Heather cleared her throat. "Maybe we should table this discussion for I also have bank records," I said, showing that my mailing address was changed without my permission. "And I have emails that were accessed from an IP address that isn't mine." Kristen grabbed her purse. "I don't have to listen to this. She's clearly not well. Then why are you leaving?" I asked. She stopped at the door, turned back, and for the first time, I saw something crack in her face. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly. "No," I said. "I'm fixing one." She left. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then Mr. Johnson spoke up. "I saw her at your house last month. Thought it was odd. You weren't home." Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. She told me you'd given her a key, said you couldn't be trusted alone anymore. One by one, they started talking. And I realized something. They'd been watching. They'd seen things. They just hadn't said anything because Kristen had gotten to them first. She'd built a story about me. And now I was tearing it down. I couldn't stop shaking on the drive home. Not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like anger finally finding its voice. When I got inside, I went straight to my computer. Opened my bank account online. I'd avoided looking at it too closely before. It felt easier to just trust that everything was fine. But nothing was fine. I clicked through transaction history. Scrolled back 3 months. There, small transfers. $50 here. $75 there. Always on Wednesdays. Always to an account labeled H. Morrison. Heather Morrison. Kristen's sister. I added them up. Over $2,000 in 12 weeks. My hands hovered over the keyboard. Then I called the bank. A different person answered this time. Not Norman. First National, this is Jennifer. How can I help you? I need to report unauthorized transactions on my account. Okay, let me pull that up. Account number? I gave it to her. And what transactions are you referring to? Transfers to an account ending in 4,739. Multiple transfers over the last 3 months. I didn't authorize any of them. A pause. Keyboard clicking. Ma'am, those transfers were made through online banking. Using your login credentials? I don't use online banking. Another pause. Longer this time. Mrs. Chun, I'm seeing login activity from your account going back several months. Multiple times per week. From what IP address? More clicking. It varies. But most frequently from an address in the 192.168 range. That's usually a home network. Is there a physical location attached to that? I can't give you that information. But if you believe your account has been compromised, I can flag it and open an investigation? Yes, do that. Okay, I'm putting a temporary hold on the account. You'll need to come in and verify your identity before any further transactions can be made. And ma'am, if someone else has been accessing your account, you should also check your other financial records. Insurance, Social Security, anything with your information. I thanked her and hung up. Then I logged into my email, searched for Social Security Administration, found a notification from 6 weeks ago. Your representative PA information has been updated. I'd never requested a representative PA. I called the SSA, sat on hold for 40 minutes, finally got through to a human. I need to verify my account information, I said. The woman on the other end walked me through security questions, then pulled up my file. Okay, Mrs. Chun, everything looks current. Your benefits are being direct deposited to your checking account. And your representative PAI is listed as Kristen Chun. My stomach dropped. I didn't authorize that. Let me check the date it was filed. Looks like 7 weeks ago. We received a signed form and a notarized physician's statement confirming that you needed assistance managing your benefits. What physician? Dr. Richard Moss. Internal medicine. I'd never heard that name in my life. Can you send me a copy of that form? I can mail it to your address on file. What address do you have? She read it back. Kristen's address? That's not my address, I said. Silence on the other end. Ma'am, if you believe there's been fraud, you need to report this immediately. I'm going to transfer you to our fraud division. I spent another hour on the phone, answering questions, verifying information, promising to send documentation. When I finally hung up, it was almost dark outside. I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by papers, bank statements, emails, records from the county clerk. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You need to stop. You're hurting everyone. Think about your son. I stared at it. Another text. He doesn't want to choose between you and his wife. Don't make him. I screenshot both messages. Then I opened my Ring app again. Scrolled back further, this time. Found a video from 2 months ago. Kristen entering my house while I was at the grocery store. She walked straight to the kitchen, opened the drawer where I kept my checkbook, took a photo with her phone. Another video. 3 weeks ago. Kristen in my bedroom, standing at Harold's desk, going through files. Another. Last month. Kristen and Heather together. Heather holding up a document, both of them laughing. I saved every video, backed them up to the cloud. Then I called Oscar at the county clerk's office. "It's Nancy Chun," I said. "I need that notary's information again. The one who supposedly witnessed my signatures? Hold on." Rustling paper. "Louisa Vargas. Works at the UPS store on 5th and Maple. Why? Because I'm going to visit her tomorrow. Mrs. Chun, if you're planning to confront her, I'm not confronting anyone. I'm just asking questions." He was quiet for a moment. "Be careful. People who do this, they don't like being exposed." "I know," I said. And I did know. Because the texts had made it clear. They weren't done yet. The UPS store was squeezed between a nail salon and a tax preparation office. I walked in just after 9. A young woman with a name tag that said Louisa was behind the counter, sorting packages. "Can I help you?" she asked. I pulled out the power of attorney document, set it on the counter. "You notarized this 8 weeks ago." She glanced at it. "Okay. Do you remember me?" She looked at me closer, then shook her head. "I notarize a lot of documents. I can't remember everyone. You're supposed to verify identity. Check ID. Watch the person sign." Her face shifted. Defensive now. "I always do that. Then you'll remember that I wasn't here 8 weeks ago. I was in Oregon." She picked up the document, studied it. "Look, if there's a problem with the notarization, you need to file a complaint with the state. I'm not filing a complaint yet. I'm asking if you actually saw me sign this." She didn't answer right away. "Someone brought this in," she said finally. Said her mother-in-law had already signed it and just needed it notarized. "She had a copy of your ID?" "A copy?" "Yeah, I know I'm supposed to see the original, but she seemed legit. She said you were homebound, that you couldn't come in." "Who was she?" Louisa hesitated. "I don't remember her name." "Was it Kristen?" "Maybe." "Look, I notarize 50 documents a week. I can't." "You committed fraud?" I said quietly. Her face went pale. "I didn't know." She said everything was legitimate. "And you didn't verify. You took her word." I picked up the document. "How many other papers has she brought in?" "I don't know. Maybe 2 or 3? For me?" "I think so. I'd have to check the records." "Check them." She went to her computer, typed, clicked, then turned the monitor toward me. 3 documents, all notarized by Louisa, all supposedly signed by me, all brought in by someone else. "I need copies," I said. She printed them. Her hands were shaking. When I left the UPS store, I sat in my car and called the attorney. "Mr. Pemberton, it's Nancy Chun. I have proof." "What kind of proof?" The notary admitted she never saw me sign. She notarized documents based on a photocopy of my ID. "That's good." "That's very good." "Can you come in?" "I'm on my way." I drove straight to his office. This time, the receptionist didn't smile at me like I was fragile. She just led me back. Mr. Pemberton looked at the documents. At the notary's statement I'd recorded on my phone. At the bank records and the Ring camera videos. "This is substantial," he said. "We can file a petition to void all of these documents. We can also report this to Adult Protective Services and possibly the district attorney. How long will that take? Weeks? Maybe months. These cases move slowly. I don't have months." He looked at me. "What do you mean?" "She's not stopping. She's escalating." I showed him the texts from last night. "She's threatening me." He read them. His jaw tightened. "Mrs. Chun, I think you need to consider a restraining order. Will that stop her from accessing my accounts? Not immediately. But it'll create a legal record. It'll show a pattern. Then let's do it. We spent the next 2 hours filling out paperwork, affidavits, timelines, evidence logs. When I finally left his office, it was almost dark. I drove home slowly, watching my rearview mirror. When I pulled into my driveway, Kristen's car was there again. She was sitting on my porch steps, waiting. I didn't get out of the car right away. She stood up, walked toward me. I rolled down my window 2 inches. "Nancy, we need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. You're making this so much worse than it needs to be. You stole from me. I helped you. You were overwhelmed. You were making mistakes." "I wasn't making mistakes." "You were." Her face hardened. "You're going to regret this." I pulled out my phone. Hit record. "Say that again," I said. She stared at the phone, then at me. "You think you're so smart?" she said quietly. "But you're just a lonely old woman who doesn't know when to quit." "I'm not lonely," I said. "And I'm not quitting." She leaned closer to the window. "Your son is going to hate you for this." "Then that's his choice." I rolled up the window, put the car in reverse, backed out of the driveway. I didn't go home that night. I went to a hotel, and I realized something. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The attorney's office felt different this time. I walked in with a folder organized by date, bank records, ring camera screenshots, the notary's admission recorded on my phone, the texts, the fraudulent documents, everything. Mr. Pemberton's assistant brought me coffee without asking if I wanted it. That felt like progress. "Mrs. Chun," Mr. Pemberton said when I sat down, "I reviewed everything you sent over. This is one of the clearest cases of elder financial abuse I've seen. So what happens now?" He opened his own folder. "We filed the petition to void the documents yesterday. The court accepted it. We also filed a complaint with Adult Protective Services and the District Attorney's Office. They're opening an investigation. How long before something actually happens?" The restraining order hearing is scheduled for next week. In the meantime, I contacted the bank directly. Once I showed them the evidence, they agreed to freeze any accounts that have Kristen's name attached. They're also reversing the unauthorized transfers. I felt something loosen in my chest. All of them. Every transaction we can prove was made without your consent. It'll take a few days to process, but yes. And the power of attorney. That's void as of this morning. I sent copies of the fraudulent notarization to every institution that has it on file. Your doctor's office, Social Security, the insurance company. They're all updating their records. I sat back in my chair. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. "There's one more thing," he said. "The DA wants to meet with you. They're considering filing criminal charges. Against Kristen? Against Kristen and potentially the notary. What they did is fraud, identity theft, forgery. These are felonies. Will I have to testify? Probably. If it goes to trial." He leaned forward. "Mrs. Chun, I need you to be prepared. This is going to get harder before it gets easier. Kristen will fight back. She'll try to discredit you. She'll try to make you look unreliable. She already did that. I know. And that's exactly why we'll win." When I left his office, I checked my phone. 17 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemails. Then a text from my son. "Mom, what's going on? Kristen said you're accusing her of stealing. She's devastated. Can we please talk?" I stared at the message. My son, the boy I raised, the man who'd stood next to me at Harold's funeral and promised we'd get through it together. I typed back, "We can talk, but first, you need to see something." I sent him the recordings, the bank statements, the notary's admission, everything. Then I turned off my phone. The next morning, I went to the bank. Norman was there. When he saw me, he stood up from his desk. Mrs. Chun, I owe you an apology. I didn't sit down. Yes, you do. I should have listened. I should have looked closer. I made assumptions I had no right to make. You treated me like I was incompetent. I know. And I'm sorry. He gestured to his office. Can we talk? I followed him in. He pulled up my account on his screen. Everything's been reversed. The transfers, the address changes, the authorization, it's all gone. What about the other people? What other people? The other older clients who come in with family members? The ones you assume are confused. He was quiet for a long moment. We're implementing new protocols, he said finally. Private verification, secondary documentation, training for all staff on recognizing financial abuse. That should have already existed. You're right. It should have. I left the bank and drove to the grocery store. The same one I'd been going to for 30 years. Mrs. Patterson was in the produce section. When she saw me, she walked over. Nancy, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry I didn't say anything sooner. You saw her going into my house. I did. But she said you'd given her permission. And I thought maybe you needed the help. Why would you think that? She looked uncomfortable. Because that's what she told everyone. That you were declining. That you couldn't be trusted alone. And you believed her. I'm sorry. I picked up a bag of apples. Next time someone tells you an older woman can't handle her own life, maybe ask the woman first. I walked away. At the checkout, the cashier smiled at me. How are you today, Mrs. Chun? I'm fine, I said. And I meant it. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't carrying someone else's story about who I was. I was carrying my own. The hearing was in a windowless room at the courthouse. I sat on one side with Mr. Pemberton. Kristen sat on the other with an attorney I'd never seen before. She wouldn't look at me. My son wasn't there. The judge was a woman in her 50s. She read through the petitions silently, flipping pages, her expression unreadable. Finally, she looked up. Ms. Chun, you're accused of financially exploiting your mother-in-law through fraudulent documentation and unauthorized access to her accounts. How do you plead? Kristen's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client denies these allegations. She was acting in good faith to assist an elderly woman who was struggling to manage her affairs. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Chun, this is your petition. Can you summarize your complaint? I stood. My legs felt steady. She forged my signature on legal documents. She changed my mailing address without permission. She transferred money from my accounts. She filed false paperwork claiming I was incompetent. And she did all of it while telling everyone I was too confused to notice. The judge looked at Kristen. Do you deny accessing Mrs. Chun's accounts? Kristen's face was pale. I was helping her. She asked me to. Do you have documentation of that request? It was verbal. She was overwhelmed after her husband died. She said she needed help. Did she sign anything authorizing you to help? Kristen hesitated. The power of attorney. The power of attorney that was notarized without her presence. Silence. The judge turned to Mr. Pemberton. You have evidence? He handed her the folder. Bank statements. Ring camera videos. The notary's recorded admission. The fraudulent signatures analyzed side by side. She reviewed everything. The room was completely quiet except for the sound of papers turning. After 10 minutes, she set the folder down. Ms. Chun, the evidence here is substantial. The notary admits she never witnessed Mrs. Chun sign these documents. The bank records show unauthorized transfers. The timestamps prove Mrs. Chun was out of state when some of these signatures were supposedly made. She paused. This isn't helping. This is fraud. Kristen's attorney stood again. Your Honor, my client is a mother of 2 young children. She has no criminal record. She made errors in judgment, but there was no malicious intent. Errors in judgment. The judge's voice sharpened. She forged legal documents. She stole money. She filed false reports claiming her mother-in-law was incompetent. That's not an error. That's a crime. I watched Kristen's face crumble. The judge continued. I'm granting the restraining order. Ms. Chun, you are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Chun directly or indirectly. You are prohibited from entering her property. You are prohibited from accessing any of her financial accounts or personal records. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. Kristen started crying. Additionally, the judge said, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. The evidence warrants investigation for identity theft, forgery, and elder financial abuse. Kristen's attorney leaned over, whispering urgently. The judge wasn't finished. Ms. Chun, you may think you were helping. You may have convinced yourself that your mother-in-law couldn't manage alone. But what you actually did was strip an autonomous woman of her dignity, her agency, and her financial security. The law doesn't take that lightly. She signed the order, handed it to the bailiff. We're adjourned. I stood up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Kristen looked at me then. Really looked at me. Nancy, please, she said quietly. Think about the kids. Think about your son. I am thinking about them, I said. I'm thinking about what you're teaching them. I walked out of the courthouse into cold November air. Mr. Pemberton followed me to the parking lot. You did well in there, he said. What happens now? The DA will review the case. If they decide to prosecute, there'll be criminal charges. Kristen could face jail time. And if they don't, then at least you have the restraining order, and your accounts are protected. And everyone knows the truth. I nodded. He put a hand on my shoulder. Mrs. Chun, most people in your situation never fight back. They're too embarrassed, too tired, too convinced that no one will believe them. But you fought, and you won. I drove home slowly. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for a moment. My house, my name on the deed, my life, nobody else's. I went inside and locked the door behind me. 3 months later, the paperwork finally came. All of it. Every document restored to what it should have been. My name alone on the accounts. My address corrected everywhere. My signature, the only one that mattered. I spread the papers across my kitchen table and just looked at them for a while. The district attorney had filed charges. Kristen took a plea deal. Probation, restitution, community service. No jail time, but a felony conviction that would follow her forever. My son called once after the hearing. We talked for 11 minutes. He said he didn't know what to believe. Said Kristen swore she was just trying to help. Said maybe we could all sit down and work it out. I told him no. I told him I loved him. I told him my door was always open. But I also told him I wouldn't sit across from someone who stole from me and pretend it was a misunderstanding. He hasn't called since. That hurts. It'll probably always hurt. But I'm still here. And I'm still standing. The bank manager, Norman, stops by my table now when I come in. Doesn't hover. Doesn't talk slow. Just asks how I'm doing like I'm a person, not a liability. Mrs. Patterson waves when she sees me in the neighborhood. We don't talk much, but there's respect there now. She knows I'm not someone to underestimate. Oscar from the county clerk's office sent me a card last month. It just said, "Proud of you." I put it on my refrigerator. I installed a new security system, changed all my passwords, set up alerts on every account. I check my mail every single day now. I open every envelope. I also joined a support group for financial abuse survivors. Meets every Tuesday at the library. There are 8 of us. All women, all over 60. All with stories that sound different on the surface, but feel exactly the same underneath. We talk about shame. About how hard it is to admit someone you trusted hurt you. About how the world sees older women as easy targets because we're supposed to be quiet and grateful and not make a fuss. Last week, A woman named Dorothy told us her daughter had forged her name on a reverse mortgage. She cried through the whole story. When she finished, I handed her the number for Mr. Pemberton. "You don't have to accept it," I told her. "You can fight back." She looked at me like I'd handed her something precious. Maybe I had. I still live alone in the house Harold and I bought 40 years ago. I still miss him. Probably always will. But I'm not the same woman I was 6 months ago. That woman would have convinced herself she was imagining things. That woman would have apologized for being suspicious. That woman would have stayed quiet because making noise felt like admitting weakness. This woman knows better. I learned something through all of this. Something I should have known all along. Trust isn't something you inherit because someone's family. Trust is earned. Every single day. And boundaries aren't cruelty. They're not coldness. They're not what you put up when you're bitter or broken. They're what you put up when you finally understand that protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Last week, I got a letter from Kristen, forwarded through the attorney because of the restraining order. It said she was sorry. Said she never meant to hurt me. Said she thought she was doing the right thing. I read it once. Then I put it in a folder with all the other documents from the case. I didn't write back. Some apologies aren't looking for forgiveness. They're looking for absolution. And I don't owe her that. I owe myself peace. So that's what I'm building. One day at a time. In a house that's mine. With accounts that have my name and only my name. With a life that belongs to me. I'm 66 years old. I'm a widow. I'm a mother to a son who may or may not come back. But more than any of that, I'm a woman who kept the receipts. Who stayed quiet until she didn't. Who learned that dignity isn't something someone can give you or take away. It's something you claim for yourself. And I'm claiming mine. If you're listening to this from somewhere in the world, I want you to know something. If you've ever felt invisible, dismissed, or talked over because of your age, you're not alone. And you don't have to accept it. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever lived through something like this, because your story matters too.